In terms of things that people think that are wrong about crypto, everyone that I speak to is like, see, Harry, I told you, crypto is not a good hedge against inflation. And I've seen that you say before, I think it was actually. Why do you think maybe it was a good hedge against it?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you live in a dollar-denominated country, it probably wasn't a very good hedge. But there are many other countries where it was an amazing hedge, right? So, there are other countries that whose currencies have, devalued massively over the same time period. So I think it's a little bit of a perspective of where you live.
Why have central banks abused their power through quantitative easing?
Well, there's actually a really interesting new paper that was just published about this. It's because central banks aren't these entirely benevolent, above-it-all policymakers. Cantillon wrote about this in the 1700s, that when you print money, basically the people who are closer to the money benefit more. Closer to the money meaning people who have good relationships with banks, people who are already wealthy. And so this isn't a new idea. This is an actually well-understood, longer-running idea. And the reality is that central bankers, too, are people who have friends who have their own finances. And I think they not only saw this as doing their job, but they also this seems to be working well for me and my friends. So.
How do you think about central bank digital currencies? We've seen a lot in Europe about now you have your digital passport post-COVID. Now we see Rishi Sunak talking about a central bank digital currency. How do you think about these?
I believe that a lot depends on the specific features of these, right? So if you wind up with a central bank digital currency that is totally centrally controlled and anybody's balance can be turned off at a moment's notice and there's no concept of people having, custody or a chain of custody, where I think it will make it far too easy to circumvent law and to use finance as power. I mean, I thought it was a very, very bad precedent for Trudeau to freeze the accounts of the truckers during the sort of trucker demonstration. And if central bank digital currencies take that form, I think they're very bad because they will further shift the balance of power from the citizens away to the state. So I'm a fan in the US. I think that if we got the right stablecoin legislation, let a lot of stablecoins bloom, allow these stablecoins to have multiple tiers, essentially, where the government, if it wants to freeze somebody's assets, needs to take serious steps to do so and needs to go to multiple people in order to be able to do it. And potentially there's some amount of cash equivalent, digital cash equivalent, that cannot be frozen by government, just to strike the right balance of power. So a kind of a Chinese-style central bank digital currency where the center really does control everybody's balances, I think is the wrong kind of allocation of power.
When you think about crypto being a viable alternative to fiat and those stable coins with different tiers, which I totally agree with you, and I would like to see a future when that happens, but genuinely, I'm naive here. Do governments allow for a loss of control in this way? They centralize...
Well, it's not so much a loss of control, I think, is a lot of what's currently planned is a further increase and shift of control to government relative to a world of, traditional banking and cash and so forth. So I don't want to go to the other extreme where all payments are secret all of the time either, because I gave a talk at Blockstack Berlin a few years back where I'm like, there's a failure mode in both directions. There's also a failure mode where anybody can be bribed at, and you can never trace any money, and that's bad. I don't think, you want to live in a society where there are these vast movements of money that nobody knows where they're going. I don't think that's good. And I don't want to live in a society where somebody with a button in Washington can control everybody's bank balances. The answer is somewhere between those two.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I think, the other thing that I'm hearing is, bluntly, we always knew crypto was for scammers. Look at FTX. You've been in crypto for so many years. How damaging is FTX, do you think, for the crypto ecosystem?
I think it'll be a blip in the long term. And it'll be a blip, much like, Webvan imploding or Flus.com or whatever, pick your favorite .com, thing that imploded. I just think we've been through two crypto bubbles essentially. And whenever you go through a bubble, it attracts all sorts of, people. Some people from the beginning are scammers. Some people bumble themselves way into being scammers. I'm not trying to pass judgment on which one SBF was. I'm just saying when the bubble bursts, all of those people get washed out, and that's net positive. And I think a few years back, nobody will care.
What do you think in terms of now being the best time to be investing in crypto? I made 2 crypto investments in the Q4, and my LPs were like, "What? What are you doing?" And I actually said,
I was just at a crypto conference, and I said the best time to have been in crypto was January 2009. And that was when the Bitcoin network launched. And the second best time is January of 2023.